What is up, my friend? Welcome back to the Patrick DeBello podcast. I have a few topics to talk about today, and I am very excited about them. These are things that I have found to be extremely beneficial in my training. I'm also in a really good mood because I just ran the fastest 5K of 2026, which in the grand scheme of things, in all of my 5K times, isn't super fast. But if you've been listening to the past few episodes, you know that I've been dealing with an Achilles injury. So for me to go on the pavement and run a 25-minute and 56-second 5K today with no pain and have it feel relatively easy is a massive, massive win. So before I get to those topics of the episode, I want to talk about injuries because I am 40 years old and this is by far the worst injury that I've had in my fitness career. And I say worst because I've been very lucky to not get hurt. I say worst, but I should say it's probably the longest injury that I've had. If you train hard and you train often, you're gonna have some aches and pains, maybe some strains. Those are things you can pretty much work through with your regular program. But when you have an injury, it's a little bit more of a setback. You have to make more adjustments, and it can be discouraging. And I felt discouraged quite a bit because at this time last year, I had already ran a 16-mile Spartan race. I already logged probably 100 miles a week of running. I was running a fast mile, like a 6-minute mile. I was running low 20 5Ks. My 10K time was like sub 60 minutes. I was crushing it at this time last year. And to not even be able to go out and run for 30 minutes straight had me in my feelings. I'm going to be completely honest, because when you're comparing yourself to your former self, especially when you were healthy or uninjured, it's tough, man. I mean, knowing that I'm a high-level athlete and knowing that I also can't push myself, it was a hard pill to swallow. And that's the point of this, is if you're going through an injury, or if you end up having an injury in the future, I want you to remember this. It's not the end of the world. You are going to get through it. You just got to be smart about it. You got to train around it. That doesn't mean to avoid it completely, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit more. But I just want you to know, if you're going through an injury or if you come up with one, just stay positive, stay the course, manage your expectations. You may have to taper your program back a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. You will come back from this. You can come back from this. I truly believe that, and I know that because I'm living it right now. Like I said, last year, I was putting in way more miles, running harder, lifting harder, biking harder. But I'm not going to let that get me down. I'm going to continue to push forward, and I'm going to have a strong year no matter what. So here's the deal. When I realized that I actually had this pain that was going to limit my performance, I couldn't even run for 25 minutes. I had to scale back to run-walk workouts, which for beginners are phenomenal strategies. If you're a beginner runner, you should be doing run-walk workouts, period, full stop. But as somebody who is conditioned and athletic, I never thought that I would be doing run walks at this point in my fitness career, but I've also learned that they are phenomenal rehab tools. So my issue is I had symptoms that would consistently appear around 18 to 30 minutes of running. And I had to learn how to stop my runs at this first bite of pain, I call it. It wasn't super excruciating. It was something that actually, to be completely honest, I could have worked through if I wanted to. It was just like a little bite that could have been ignored, but I could not ignore it to make sure that I moved forward as quickly as I wanted to. So I began these controlled return to run progressions, if you will, and I started out using run-walk intervals, flat surfaces, and very strict pace control. Because I did notice that when I went a little bit over a 9:30 pace, which was feeling easy to me, I would feel pain. And so the silver lining in this is my running economy improved. And I noticed it because when I was running at a 9:40 pace, it felt almost awkwardly easy. And I had to be conscious of how fast I was running because I didn't want to go faster than a 9:30, but it was getting so easy. My stride felt so natural that when I scaled back to like 9:45 or 10, it didn't feel natural. So my running economy improved, and that was huge. So like I said, I learned to stop my runs at the first bite of pain or the first warning sign instead of trying to test my ceiling every single run. So I didn't want to fall into this cycle of I feel good, test my ceiling, have pain, restart. So I was trying to focus on repeatable symptom-free sessions. And that looked majorly different than what I'm used to. I did do some strength training in the form of like seated calf raises, standing calf raises, basically to like add tendon capacity work outside of my runs. That way the only like load on my tendon wasn't from running, it was from other portions of strength training. And in the meantime, I did a lot of Airdyne bike workouts to maintain my aerobic fitness and to maintain my aerobic base. So I did a lot of Airdyne intervals that helped me keep my cardio in check while I was basically rehabbing my run. So real quick, I'm going to break down this gradual rebuild of the capacity of my Achilles tendon. For a week, I did 2 20-minute clean runs. If that felt good, I did 24-minute clean run for a week. And then I went to 30 minutes, and I had to do at least 3 30-minute runs with absolutely no pain. Then I did 32 minutes twice, then 35 minutes. And remember, this was over the course of like 2.5 months. So once all that felt better, then I started to notice that I was able to go a little bit faster. I could actually tap into that like low 9-minute pace and have absolutely no issues. So my final major checkpoint was when I hit a 38 to 40 minute run. And then another checkpoint was 30 minutes of a little bit of a faster sustained pace. That was actually on Sunday. I picked it up a little bit, and then I didn't sprint, but basically ran a little harder for the last like 30 seconds. I had zero pain during or after. Huge win. And that's how I knew that today I was ready to push myself a little bit more. So today I actually ran my, like I said, about 20, we'll just call it what it is, 26-minute 5K, around 8:30, an 8-minute and 30-second pace for most of my 30-minute round. And then I did a fast finish for 2 minutes where I actually believe I hit like a 7-minute pace, maybe a little bit under. I actually, at this point, I've already forgot. So I ran a faster sustained pace for the 30-minute main part of the workout, and then during the 2-minute fast finish, I actually ran relatively fast. Again, not a sprint, but I was definitely running hard. No pain during, no pain after. Here we are, it's been like 2 or 3 hours, still no pain. I've been walking throughout the house, walking in the backyard, talking to my wife, no issues, super huge win. And I just also want to touch on something to where when people have an injury, a lot of basically a lot of people will say like you have to work around an injury. So if you have an Achilles injury, oh, it's fine, just do upper body workouts. It sounds good, but it's also not going to solve the problem, and it could actually set you back a little bit more. So I say that to say instead of just taking 2 months off of running or lower body stuff, I had to rebuild the capacity of my Achilles. And while maybe that meant taking like 2 or 3 days off of lower body training and running, I had to build the tendon capacity up. And it's the same thing if you have like a hamstring strain or a pec strain. You want to take a couple days off when you initially notice the injury and let the inflammation go down. It's a little pissed off and you have to let it relax. But after that, you have to build that tissue back up. Don't just completely avoid any movement with that muscle. Take it slow, find that ceiling, stay under it, and learn what you can do to continue to work without going over that ceiling or through that ceiling and building up the capacity. An injury is not a recipe for complete disaster. It doesn't mean that you have to shut it down. It just means that you have to take a step back and look at your program with a different approach and build up that capacity of the tissue that's injured. And that may come with a little bit of pain, but it shouldn't really be higher than a 1 or 2. Definitely shouldn't be pushing through pains of 7 or 8. That's going to be a bigger issue. Maybe you'll have to go see a PT. Maybe you'll need some scans. At least if that persists for longer than a couple weeks or a few weeks. So an injury isn't a death sentence to your training. If you're going through an injury, please keep a confident mindset, keep doing the right thing, and remember this in case you do have to, work through an injury. I want you to remember that you're not alone and you will be back and better than ever. So next, I want to talk about how to get strong, and I mean really strong. You probably know, if you follow me or listen to me or any other fitness professional, strength training or resistance training has a pretty broad set of variables. Basically, if you're anywhere from the 5 to 10 rep range, leaving 1 to 2 reps in reserve, you're going to get strong. If you're someone who's coming off the couch, you haven't worked out in 15 years, or you're a busy dad and life's, gotten the best of you and you're just getting back into the gym, you will get strong and probably build muscle by doing anything, right? Any type of program that you do consistently will work. But if you are a somewhat conditioned and seasoned athlete or person that works out and you want to get crazy strong, this is the method. You want to be training maximum effort lifts and dynamic effort lifts. One day should be max effort, the next day should be dynamic effort. And I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. Let's say you pick one upper body exercise and one lower body exercise, and you want those to be your main lifts on the respective day. And you want to get super strong on those exercises. You are going to have a max effort day for that lift, a dynamic effort lift for that day, or for that lift, and then same like for upper and lower. For example, let's say we're talking for upper body, bench press. For lower body, we're talking deadlift. Your max effort, you're going to have a max effort upper body day, followed by a max effort lower body day, and then a dynamic effort upper body day, followed by a dynamic effort lower body day. The definitions of these: max effort training or a max effort lift is designed for you to move maximal or near maximal weight. So we're talking peak performance, peak force production, moving heavy weight very well. Okay, bar speed matters, but moving the weight correctly matters more. You do not want form breakdown. You don't want to go to failure. Both of those things are counterproductive. We are working on peak force production, moving heavy weight well. That is your max effort lift. So Monday, bench press, max effort. We're talking 1 to 5 reps, 90 to 100% of your 1 rep max. No rep in reserve target. And you're going to do 1 to 3 sets of that. The way I program this is I use 90% of my clients' 1 rep max, and we usually do 1 rep for 3 sets. Bench press, we find their 1 rep max, whether it's an estimate or it's a true 1 rep max. I take 90% of that. They are going to warm up and work their way up to that. So just the bar, 45 pounds, 10 times. 95 pounds, 6 times. 135 pounds, 5 times. If you want 1 more, cool. But if you're ready to get to work and hit your actual working sets, now is the time. 90% of your 1 rep max, 1 rep, 3 sets. After that, what I would do is I would actually drop the weight and then go a little bit higher reps, maybe something like 4, and hit 3 sets of 4, challenging, maybe 1 to 2 reps in reserve in that case. That's a maximal effort lift. Okay? It is very useful for strength athletes, power athletes, and people who just want to improve maximal strength. The way I see it is this is functional training. If you're involved in social media in any capacity, there's all this hoopla out there about functional training and stupid exercises like bear crawls and crab walks and animal flow movements. And don't get me wrong, maybe they have their place in a program. There's nothing functional about moving like an animal. But if you can pick something up off the ground that's heavy, and it's not even close to your maximal training weight, that's functional. If we're talking about what I just mentioned for maximal effort, and you do that for your deadlift day, then lifting a couch with your spouse or lifting a couch with your brother to move furniture is nothing. When you can deadlift 90% of your 1 rep max, you can move a couch, you can move patio furniture. My wife and I had to move some heavy patio furniture this weekend because we got her mom a new set from our friends for Mother's Day. It's nothing to me. It's like a toy because I do this max effort and dynamic effort training so often that moving household objects is like playing to me. So now on to dynamic effort training. It's designed to improve velocity and bar speed. So the main focus is speed, consistent bar path, and movement quality. So same thing, you don't want to be going to failure. Shaky, sketchy reps is counterproductive, but every rep should be explosive with high quality of movement and a low level of fatigue. And I know this might seem counterproductive because fatigue is almost, they're being exhausted and feeling beat up during a workout is almost this badge of honor to where when you get done with some dynamic effort training, you might not feel completely smoked in that moment. Now don't get me wrong, if you do this type of training, it's hard work. It is going to hand you your ass. Monday, max effort, upper body. Tuesday, max effort, lower body. Thursday, dynamic effort, upper body. Friday, dynamic effort, lower body. That's a badass split. You are going to feel it. You have to rest and sleep well. You have to fuel your body. Doing this in a deficit is probably going to smoke you, and it's not recommended. You at least want to be in maintenance when you're doing something like this. So even though these sessions on their own might not feel like you're turning yourself inside out, these compounding sessions are going to be a high level of stress, and they're going to hand you your ass. On the programming side of things, for dynamic effort. It is about 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max. We're shooting for 2 to 4 repetitions, and the sets are higher than max effort. So we're going for 4 to 6 sets. For dynamic effort, I usually have people around 4 repetitions, and a lot of the times I do have them do 4 to 5 sets. If there's someone who's feeling really good, we'll go up to 6 sets. But dynamic effort is fast bar speed, low fatigue, 4 repetitions, 70 to 80% of your maximum 1 rep max, and 4 to 6 sets. Same thing, you can work up to that 70-80%. So sometimes you'll see like work up to 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max and then hit 4 reps for 4 sets. I do like that because I don't warm up before my training. My warm up is the warm up sets. So if I'm going to do a dynamic effort deadlift, I don't spend 15 minutes doing hip mobilization and all this other nonsense that you see these people do. I start at a very light weight and I go a little higher reps, around 5 or 10, and then I work my way up by increasing the weight and lowering the reps until I reach my specific weight that I'm training that day. So dynamic effort lifts, they're going to improve your rate of force development. It's going to teach you how to move weight faster, and it's a useful crossover for sport and strength performance. So like I said, this type of programming is super stressful, but it is going to make you strong as all hell. If you want to increase your weight, the weight that you are lifting in compound lifts, max effort and dynamic effort lifts are the way to go. It is going to make you stupid strong. You can run this for 4 to 6 months and your lifts are going to be out of this world. I say lift, but you could also do this for calisthenics. You could also apply this to pull-ups by doing weighted pull-ups. So if you can do 5 or 10 regular pull-ups and you want to increase your pull-up strength, you should be adding weight and doing the same exact concept. Hell, you can do it for dips. Just because it's a calisthenics exercise doesn't mean that you can't utilize this for strength in that arena. Candidly, that's exactly how I train my pull-ups. Every Monday is my upper body day. I do pull-ups. I don't have any interest in building a bigger bench. It doesn't really have carryover to what I do in my performance life. I run Spartan races. I need to be able to climb a rope. I need to be able to pull myself over a wall. I need to be able to hang, on different apparatuses and swing on monkey bars. So a bench press isn't really my main priority. I do it once in a while. But a pull-up is a non-negotiable for me. I have to continue to get stronger in pull-ups. So I will do 2 warm-up sets for my pull-ups every Monday. I leave 3 reps in reserve. That allows me to move through the range of motion. It warms up my joints. It warms up my muscles. It gets me feeling loose. And then I'll go into max effort, where I am going to 90% of my 1 rep max, which is probably 100 pounds of a weighted pull-up. So I weigh 175, I can probably do 1 pull-up with 100 pounds. So let's call 275 is my 1 rep max. I'll do a super heavy pull-up, just 1 rep. After my warm-up, I'll do 3 sets of 1. And then maybe I will lower the weight a little bit and hit a couple sets of 4. And that's my pull-up day. So all of this can be trained with any type of movement you are looking to improve. This is mainly for compound movements. You're not going to do this for the pec deck. You're not going to do this for cable crossovers. Those are inherently better, like hypertrophy exercises. not necessarily strength. Again, there's always carryover between the two. There's this line, or it's not like there's a line that you cross and all of a sudden you cross over this line and you're not getting stronger or you're not getting bigger. There's always carryover between the two. But usually, if you want to get bigger, you are using like braced exercises, or fixed exercises or focused exercises like machines or cables. For pure strength, you're using compound exercises. So that is my little segment on max effort, dynamic effort training. If you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to reach out. Shoot me an email. Leave a comment. I'll touch on it more. If there's any exercises you want to talk about specifically, feel free. The next topic I want to talk about is important because it's becoming race season. Here locally, we've already had a couple of running races. We have had a half marathon. We've had what is called the Mountain Goat, which is a little shorter distance. It's 10 miles, but it's a little bit more elevation than like a flat half marathon. Spartan races are picking up. It's race time, baby. So I want to give you a strategy to fuel yourself for a race. If you are someone who signed up for a race, you are going to sign up for a race. We're talking about carb loading. And I do not carb load in the traditional sense that you may have heard about. It's a little bit, the traditional type of carb loading is a little bit overrated and outdated. I'm talking about like, let's have a huge pasta dinner the night before a race. Or before I knew about what I'm going to discuss, when I was doing Spartan races with my friend, we would travel 4 hours away and, we're staying in an Airbnb, and once in a while we maybe had an Airbnb that had a grill so we could, cook some burgers and things like that, which are horrible, horrible options for the night before a race. My God, what were we thinking? But the other thing we used to do is we would find a sushi restaurant and we would just go and feast on sushi because there was carbs and protein. You're obviously getting rice and you're getting fish. So we thought that was a great idea. The problem is when you eat a huge meal the night before a race, anywhere after 6 p.m., if not sooner than that, let's say anywhere after like 2 or 4 p.m., the food is still digesting the next morning. The digestion process takes hours and hours and hours. We're talking probably 24 hours. So when you eat a massive meal the night before a race, you wake up the next morning, you have a bowel movement that was probably your lunch or breakfast from the day before. The food that you ate the night before is still sitting in your stomach. Blood is being pooled into your stomach to be used for digestion instead of performance when you start to race. Here's a mechanism in our bodies that I never knew about until a few years ago. It's actually fascinating. It's called the ileal brake. Basically, the job of the ileal brake is to slow down digestion after a large meal. This happens whether you are an athlete or whether you're preparing for a race or not. I know for me, I used to work, when I owned my gym, I used to work long days and I used to basically have like a small lunch if I was lucky, if I was able to bounce out between clients. I'd have a small lunch and then basically I would get home and I would eat one huge meal at night. And I have friends who do this. They work long hours, whether it's construction or running their business, and they don't eat all day. And then they basically go home and eat 3 meals at once. The beautiful thing about the ileal brake is it slows down digestion so you can actually absorb all of the nutrients from that massive meal. Because usually when you eat 3 meals a day, your body just naturally digests the food and the nutrients get distributed throughout your body without any real issue. But that won't happen when you eat this massive meal because we can only digest so much food at once. So the ileal brake pops on, slows down your digestion, and it allows those nutrients to be distributed through your body instead of just being wasted. So the better approach to carb loading. If you want, you can start carb loading like 3 to 4 days before an event. Hell, you can do 5 days. That is going to fill up your glycogen stores appropriately. Okay? Glycogen is stored energy in your muscles. It is the stored version of glucose. Glycogen is going to fuel your muscles for your performance. Anytime you work out, let's say you do 15 heavy curls, you are depleting your biceps of glycogen. And that's why they say to eat after your workout so you can replenish your glycogen stores. There's some truth to that. So if you want, you can start to carb load 3 to 5 days before your event, because that is going to fill your glycogen stores. But then, and you should do it gradually. I should say that. If you're going to carb load 3 to 4 days before an event, do it gradually. Don't all of a sudden just introduce like 300 grams of carbs on Monday when you have a race on Saturday. Maybe increase it like 50 on Monday, 100 on Tuesday, then maybe get to like 200 Wednesday, 200 Thursday, 200 Friday, something like that. I don't know your total caloric intake, so I can't give you exact numbers. A very broad suggestion, but it's better than you just adding 500 grams of carbs Monday. You're going to feel like shit. Okay, so start to carb load gradually 3 to 5 days out. Here's the most important part. The day before the race, instead of having one huge meal at night, you are going to eat 75% of your calories before 2 p.m. That is going to allow the food that you eat earlier in the day to be going through the digestion process even by that night. And then hopefully when you have a bowel movement the next morning before your race, you will actually be having a bowel movement that is some of the food that you ate yesterday. Because I'll tell you what, to go back to eating a huge meal the night before, not only does it slow down your digestion and you're not actually using that food for energy and your blood is pooled in your gut to digest food and not being used during the performance, you could very well get an upset stomach when you're running or doing an obstacle course race with all that food in your stomach. If you get an upset stomach, that's best case scenario. If you have to find the bathroom, that's worst case scenario. Well, it not being able to find a bathroom is worst case scenario. Some of these races, they don't have porta potties. You've seen these horror stories of, marathon runners crapping themselves. It happens. It's never happened to me, thank God, because my body just shuts down when I'm not near a toilet. So I have that going for me. But you just want to avoid having any digestive or stomach issues, and this is the best way to do it. So I'll reiterate real quick because I know I'm all over the place. The day before your race, you are going to eat 75% of your calories by 2 p.m. And then you're going to have a small dinner at night, say 6 p.m. That dinner should be lower in protein, lower in fiber, and it should be easy to digest foods, ideally easy to digest carbohydrates. The goal is to top off your glycogen stores in that moment without waking up feeling heavy or bloated, without having a horrible bowel movement, and without having to have a bowel movement while you're on the course or while racing. So I have learned some of those things the hard way. When I first got into Spartan races, I had no clue how to fuel myself for a race that lasted longer than an hour or two. There is also the topic of what to eat before your race, what to eat during your race, but we'll cross that bridge at another time. If you want me to talk about that, maybe leave a comment on this episode or shoot me a message on Instagram or email and let me know that is a topic that you would be interested in. If you made it this far, thank you very much. I've mentioned it before, but listening to an entire episode is a very helpful way to get my podcast noticed. The algorithm likes when people start an episode and finish it, even if it's not all in one shot. So you're helping me help other people, which is what I'm here for, so I appreciate it. I've said it already a couple times. If there's anything you want me to talk about, free to message me on Instagram at Patrick DeBello Fitness or via email patrick@syracusefitnesscenter.com. If you haven't already, please do me a huge favor. Leave me a 5-star review. If you are listening on Apple, you can leave a written review. Those are even more helpful. Most importantly, if you don't think this episode or my podcast deserves a 5-star review, don't leave a review at all. Send me an email and give me some feedback. Give me some constructive feedback. I'm open to constructive feedback. It will help me get better, but if you leave a negative review, it will affect how I reach people. And I'm just a guy trying to help as many people as possible through my education, experience, and expertise. On that note, thank you very, very much for listening. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful week of training. Ciao.